Are you leading Agile initiatives and wondering how the entire project actually flows from initiation to closure? Many project managers understand Scrum roles, ceremonies, and artifacts, but struggle to explain how an Agile initiative flows end to end. In this video, we will walk through the complete life cycle of an Agile initiative from initiation to closure. Along the way, we will briefly compare how each stage is similar to or different from a predictive approach. Let's begin. In Agile, initiation begins with clarity of purpose, not detailed requirements. Every initiative starts with a problem, opportunity, or strategic objective. Before any backlog exists, there must be alignment around why the initiative matters. This often takes the form of a value hypothesis or business case. Even in Agile, there must be strategic justification, funding approval, and stakeholder alignment. In comparison, in a predictive environment, initiation often includes a formal business case and a project charter. The charter assigns authority to the project manager, defines high-level scope, and formally authorizes the project. In Agile, you may still see a lightweight charter or initiation document. However, the focus is less on locking scope and more on defining the product vision. The product vision answers who is the customer, what problem are we solving, what value will this deliver. In predictive projects, initiation may already include early scope framing that leads toward detailed documentation, such as a business requirements document or product requirements document. In Agile, detailed requirements are intentionally deferred. Instead, we define direction and desired outcomes. The key difference at initiation is this: predictive emphasizes defining scope boundaries early. Agile emphasizes aligning around value before decomposing scope. Once the vision is clear, the next step is to turn that vision into defined work. In Agile, this starts with epics. Epics represent large, outcome-focused capabilities. These epics are then decomposed into user stories, which form the product backlog. The product backlog is the evolving list of everything that might be needed in the product. It is ordered by value and owned by the product owner. Now let's compare this with the predictive approach. In a predictive project, detailed requirements are typically captured in documents such as the BRD or PRD. These requirements are reviewed, approved, and often baselined. Once requirements are stable, the team creates a work breakdown structure, or WBS. The WBS decomposes deliverables into work packages. It defines scope boundaries clearly and supports cost and schedule estimation. In comparison, instead of decomposing the entire scope up front, Agile decomposes work progressively. Stories are refined when they are closer to implementation. The key difference here is scope philosophy. Predictive decomposes the entire project scope early to create predictability. Agile decomposes scope incrementally to preserve adaptability. However, both approaches share a similarity. Both require clarity of scope at the level of execution. In predictive, clarity is defined upfront through documentation. In Agile, clarity is defined story by story through acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria serves a similar purpose to detailed requirement specifications. They define what must be true for the work to be considered complete. Planning exists in both Agile and predictive initiatives. What differs is not whether we plan, it is when we commit and how we estimate. In a predictive environment, planning is extensive and front-loaded. The team creates a structured schedule and cost model based on the defined scope. Work is estimated in hours or days, and those estimates roll up into a full project timeline. Once approved, schedule and cost baselines are established. From that point forward, performance is measured against those baselines. The goal is early precision and predictability. Now let's look at Agile. Agile also estimates and forecasts, but it does not attempt to define the entire project with hour-level precision at the beginning. Instead, Agile uses relative estimation. User stories are estimated in story points, not hours. Teams may use techniques such as planning poker, t-shirt sizing, affinity estimation, bucket estimation. The goal is not early exactness. The goal is shared understanding of complexity and effort. These estimation techniques support conversation and alignment rather than contractual precision. Over time, the team measures velocity, which reflects how many story points are completed per sprint. Velocity becomes the foundation for forecasting. Notice the contrast. Predictive attempts to forecast the entire project duration before execution begins. Agile improves its forecast during execution, using empirical performance data. In predictive planning, scope is fully decomposed. Effort is estimated in absolute time. Commitment is long-term and baseline-driven. In Agile planning, scope is refined progressively. Effort is estimated relatively. Commitment is made at the sprint level. Sprint planning becomes the key commitment point. The product owner presents prioritized backlog items. The team evaluates capacity and selects stories aligned with the sprint goal. Commitment is short-term, realistic, and revisited every iteration. This structural difference matters. Predictive fixes scope and predicts time. Agile fixes time in short iterations and adjusts scope to maximize value. Both approaches require discipline. They simply distribute certainty differently across time. Once planning transitions into delivery, the flow becomes more visible. In predictive execution, work often follows a sequence such as requirements, design, build, test, deploy. Teams may operate in specialized groups. Integration often occurs later in the lifecycle. Progress is measured against baselines. Performance reporting may include schedule variance or cost variance. In Agile execution, work moves through sprints. Each sprint includes sprint planning, sprint execution, daily collaboration, sprint review, sprint retrospective. Development and testing occur within the same iteration. Integration is continuous. Each sprint produces a potentially usable increment. This means the increment meets the definition of done. It is integrated, tested, and functionally complete. However, it is important to distinguish between a sprint increment and a product milestone. A sprint increment represents completed, usable functionality. But an Agile initiative often builds toward a broader objective known as the minimum viable product, or MVP. The MVP is the smallest collection of functionality that delivers meaningful value to real users. Multiple sprints typically accumulate toward the MVP. Each sprint delivers working pieces. The MVP represents the first strategically significant release point. It answers a higher-level question. Have we delivered enough value to validate our core assumptions? This is a key difference in how progress is perceived. At the sprint level, Agile measures progress through working functionality delivered. At the initiative level, Agile measures progress toward achieving the MVP and subsequent value milestones. Now compare this with predictive execution. Instead of measuring progress by percentage complete against a WBS, Agile measures progress through demonstrable increments. In predictive projects, validation often concentrates near the end, sometimes through formal user acceptance testing before final deployment. There is typically one major release milestone tied to full scope completion. In Agile, delivery is incremental. Validation happens continuously. The MVP serves as an early value validation point rather than a final endpoint. Yet both approaches share the same underlying goal. Both seek to deliver agreed outcomes within defined constraints. The structure differs. The accountability does not. As execution progresses, every initiative must answer an essential question. Are we on track? In Agile, monitoring and control are built into the cadence of delivery. Let's first look at how this works in an Agile initiative. Agile relies on transparency and empirical evidence. Instead of comparing performance against a fixed schedule baseline, Agile monitors progress through observable outcomes. Common mechanisms include velocity trends, burn-down charts, burn-up charts, visible task boards, frequent stakeholder demonstrations. Velocity reflects how much work a team completes per sprint. Over time, it provides forecasting insight. Burn-down charts show remaining work within a sprint or release window. But the most important control mechanism is not a chart, it is the working increment. Each sprint ends with demonstrable functionality. Stakeholders can see what has been built. Feedback is immediate. Now compare this to predictive monitoring. In a predictive environment, control is typically exercised through comparison against baselines. Performance is measured using schedule variance, cost variance, milestone tracking, earned value metrics. If deviation occurs, corrective action is triggered. The contrast is structural. Predictive asks, are we performing according to the plan? Agile asks, are we delivering usable value at a sustainable pace? Both aim for predictability. They simply define predictability differently. Change is inevitable in any initiative. In Agile, change is expected and managed through backlog reprioritization. When new insights emerge, the product owner adjusts the order of backlog items. No formal change control board is required for adjustments. Now, briefly contrast this with predictive. In predictive projects, scope is typically baselined early. Changes require a formal change request. Impact analysis is performed. Governance approval is required before implementation. This structure protects stability. Agile protects flexibility. The deeper difference is timing. Predictive stabilizes scope early and manages deviations. Agile keeps scope fluid and stabilizes short-term delivery. Validation answers another critical question. Are we building the right thing? In Agile, validation occurs continuously. Each user story includes acceptance criteria. During sprint execution, those criteria are verified. At the end of each sprint, stakeholders participate in a sprint review. They inspect real functionality, not documentation. Feedback influences upcoming backlog priorities. Validation is distributed across time. In predictive projects, validation is often concentrated toward later phases. After design and build stages, testing may occur. Eventually, there may be formal user acceptance testing, where stakeholders validate the completed solution. Predictive validates completeness against documented requirements. Agile validates usefulness through frequent inspection. Both seek alignment with stakeholder expectations. Agile reduces the risk of late discovery by validating incrementally. Eventually, every initiative reaches an endpoint. In Agile, closure is not about finishing a list of work. It's about deciding whether the intended outcomes have been achieved. That might mean the minimum viable product is delivered, the key business goals are met, or the budget and timeline have reached their limit. At that point, the team doesn't go through a rigid shutdown process. Instead, you might see things like a final backlog review or a broader retrospective. The focus is on making sure the value has been realized. Now compare that with a predictive project. Closure there is much more structured and formal. You're confirming that all deliverables have been completed, accepted, and documented. Contracts are closed. Costs are finalized. Lessons learned are recorded. And the project is formally brought to an end. Everything ties back to one thing. Was the defined scope fully delivered? So, here's the key difference. In predictive, completion is defined by finishing the planned scope. In Agile, completion is defined by delivering enough value within the given constraints. And that's why in Agile, even after an initiative ends, the product often continues to evolve. because the goal was never just to finish work. It was to deliver value and keep improving over time. Let's step back and connect the full Agile flow from initiation to closure. It begins with clarity of purpose, product vision, high-level epics, then moves into backlog creation, progressive refinement, establishment of definition of done. Delivery progresses through sprint planning, sprint execution, daily collaboration, working increments, sprint reviews, retrospectives. Monitoring occurs through empirical metrics, transparency, stakeholder feedback. Change is handled through backlog reprioritization, short commitment cycles. Closure occurs when strategic outcomes are achieved, value objectives are satisfied, resources are reallocated. When compared to predictive approaches that rely on documents such as the BRD, PRD, WBS, and formal baselines, Agile relies more heavily on evolving backlog artifacts and frequent validation. Both approaches provide structure. Both provide governance. Both demand leadership discipline. The difference lies in where certainty is established and how risk is distributed across time. Understanding Agile as an end-to-end lifecycle changes how you lead. It is not just a collection of ceremonies, it is a structured flow that connects vision, prioritization, execution, feedback, and closure into a continuous value delivery system. When you see Agile this way, the roles and artifacts no longer feel isolated. They become interconnected components of a coherent lifecycle. If you found this walkthrough helpful, please like this video, subscribe to PMAspirant for more project management insights, and visit PMAspirant.com for additional resources. Thank you for watching.